Number 10. The Rooster Paycheck. Imagine you just worked a double shift at your job. You dealt with customers, you cleaned up messes, and you smiled until your face hurt. Now it is payday. You walk into your boss's office, expecting a nice check to pay off your student loans or buy a PlayStation 5. But instead, your boss hands you a live squawking chicken. This isn't a fever dream. This is your reality as a male companion in ancient Greece. That's basically like getting your annual Christmas bonus in the form of expiring coupons for a frozen yogurt shop. In the modern world, we appreciate cash. Venmo, Zelle, direct deposit. We like numbers in a bank account. But in the strangely specific dating culture of ancient Athens, cash was considered tacky for a courtship. Older, wealthy men, known as the Erastes, would woo their younger companions, the Ereminos, with gifts instead of money to avoid looking like a simple transaction. And the number one gift? A rooster. Or sometimes, a hare. Historians have found countless vases depicting older men awkwardly handing roosters to teenagers. It was the ancient equivalent of buying someone a drink at the bar, except the drink feathers your floor and wakes you up at 4 in the morning. If you were really lucky, maybe you got a bag of nuts or a knucklebone dice set. But you couldn't pay your rent with knuckles. You were stuck running a petting zoo in your apartment just to survive the dating scene. Number 9. The Manscaping Nightmare. Check your bathroom cabinet right now. You probably have a razor, maybe some shaving cream, or an electric trimmer. It is easy. It takes 5 minutes. Now, take all of that luxury and throw it into the trash. In ancient Greece, body hair on a young male companion was a massive social foul. The standard of beauty was smooth, marble-like skin. If you looked like a mammal, you were unemployed. That's like trying to get hired as a lifeguard while wearing a full tuxedo. It just didn't work. But here is the twist. They didn't have safety razors or soothing aloe vera gel. To get that smooth look, they used a technique called singeing. Yes, fire. They would take a hot oil lamp or a heated piece of metal and literally burn the hair off your body. Imagine the smell. It's like a barbecue went wrong at a hair salon. If that sounds too risky, you could opt for pitch plasters. This was a sticky resin they smeared on your legs and then ripped off. It was basically the ancient version of waxing strips, but with industrial-grade tree glue. Or they would pluck every single hair out individually with bronze tweezers. If you have ever plucked a single nose hair and cried, imagine doing that to your entire body every single week. It wasn't beauty. It was endurance training. Number 8. The Expiration Date. We all fear aging. We see a gray hair and panic. We buy wrinkle cream. But for a male concubine in Greece, aging wasn't just annoying. It was a career-ending catastrophe. The entire boy love system of Greece was built on a very specific, creepy window of time. You were only valuable between puberty and the moment you could grow a full beard. Think of it like being a child star in Hollywood. The moment your voice drops, the phone stops ringing. Once you started sprouting facial hair, you were considered over the hill. We are talking about retirees at the age of 18. The Greeks actually had a saying that a boy's charm ends when the beard is thicker than the hair on his head. It is brutal. One day you are the most popular guy at the party, getting free roosters and wine. The next day, you have a 5 o'clock shadow and you are basically invisible. This created a high-stress environment where you were constantly checking the mirror for stubble. It is the ancient equivalent of checking your phone for likes. But if the likes stop coming, you starve. You were a perishable good, like a carton of milk left on the counter in July. And once you spoiled, society tossed you out without a second thought. Number 7. The gym was a dust bowl. When you go to the gym today, you expect air conditioning, a water fountain, and maybe a guy wiping down the machine with sanitizer. In ancient Greece, the gymnasium was the center of social life. It was where you went to network and find sponsors. But it wasn't a sterile environment. It was a literal dirt pit. The word gymnasium comes from the Greek word gymnos, which means naked. So, step 1, you are naked. Step 2, you slather your entire body in olive oil. Step 3, and this is the worst part, you roll around in dust and sand. That's like basting yourself like a Thanksgiving turkey and then jumping into a sandbox. The Greeks believed the dust and oil combination was good for the skin and protected you from the sun. In reality, you became a walking, breathing piece of 80 grit sandpaper. If you were a companion looking for a wealthy patron, you had to spend hours in this state. You were sticky, gritty, and sweating under the Mediterranean sun. And the cleanup? They didn't have showers. They used a tool called a strigil. It was a curved metal scraper. You would scrape the sludge of oil, sweat, skin cells, and dirt off your body. It wasn't a spa day. It was like trying to clean a scorched frying pan with a spoon. If you had sensitive skin, too bad. You just had to grin and bear the exfoliation from the underworld. Number 6. The Symposium Shift. You have probably seen paintings of Greeks lounging on couches, drinking wine and eating grapes. It looks chill. This was the symposium. But for you, the companion, this wasn't a party. It was a shift at the worst customer service job imaginable. You weren't there to relax. You were the entertainment. Think of it like being the only sober person at a frat party, but the frat boys are all philosophy majors who think they are geniuses. Your job was to pour the wine, play the flute, and laugh at jokes that weren't funny. These parties lasted for hours. The men would get progressively drunker, playing a game called Kottabos, where they flicked wine dregs at a target. Guess who often got hit with flying wine sludge? You. You had to listen to older men debate the nature of justice and love, usually while they were totally wrong. If you yawned, you were rude. If you spoke out of turn, you were insolent. You had to be the perfect mixture of invisible servant and attentive audience member. It is the historical equivalent of being stuck in a Zoom meeting that could have been an email, but the meeting lasts 6 hours and everyone is drinking without you. Number 5. The Passive Stigma. This is where Greek culture gets incredibly weird and contradictory. While these relationships between older men and younger males were socially accepted, there was a massive catch. A catch-22 that could ruin your reputation. As the younger partner, you were absolutely forbidden from appearing to enjoy the interaction. That's basically like winning a trip to Disney World, but being told you will be arrested if you smile on the roller coaster. Greek society was obsessed with dominance and submission. A citizen male had to be dominant. Therefore, if you were the younger partner, you had to be stoic. You had to act like you were just doing a favor. If you showed too much enthusiasm, or if you desired the relationship too much, you were mocked as being womanly or weak. There are vase paintings showing these interactions. The older man is usually animated and reaching out. The younger male is almost always standing rigid, looking bored, or staring at the ground. It was a psychological tightrope. You had to be attractive enough to get a patron, but cold enough to keep your dignity. You were essentially an actor playing a statue. It is a level of emotional repression that would make a Victorian butler look like a party animal. Number 4. The jealous wife factor. So far, we have talked about the men, but we haven't mentioned the other person living in the house, the wife. In ancient Athens, women had very few rights, but they controlled the domestic sphere, the oikos. Now, imagine you are a young male concubine brought into a wealthy home. You are taking resources, attention, and roosters away from the actual family. That's like moving into a house where the landlord actively wants you to fall down the stairs. Greek literature and history have hints of the tension this caused. While the husband was out philosophizing, you were stuck in the house with a wife who likely despised you. And remember, poison was a very popular way to solve problems in the ancient world. If the husband died or lost his money, guess who was the first person to be kicked to the curb? You. You had zero job security. You were walking into a domestic minefield every single day. The wife couldn't divorce her husband easily, but she could definitely make your life a living nightmare. You were the third wheel on a tricycle that was rolling off a cliff. Number 3. The Atimia Trap. This is the point where the fun and games stop, and the legal horror begins. Let's say you were born a free citizen of Athens. You had rights. You could vote. You could run for office. But if you were found to have sold your body for money or gifts, you could be hit with a punishment called atimia. This translates to disenfranchisement. It is the total loss of your civil rights. Think of it like having your passport, driver's license, and social security number deleted from the database. Under atimia, you could not speak in the public assembly. You could not serve on a jury. You could not enter temples. You were technically still a citizen, but you were a ghost. If someone beat you up in the street, you couldn't take them to court because you had no legal standing to speak. This created a terrifying paradox. If you were poor and needed to support yourself, you might turn to being a companion. But by doing so, you destroyed your future as a respected adult. You were trapping yourself in a cycle of poverty and silence. The system was designed to use you when you were young and pretty, and then silence you when you became an adult. It was a trap with no exit. Number 2. The public callouts. We tend to think that cyberbullying is a modern invention. We think Twitter or Reddit is toxic. But the ancient Greeks invented doxing and shaming long before the internet existed. And they did it on pottery. That's right. Imagine drinking your morning coffee, looking at your mug, and seeing a caricature of yourself with the caption, "This guy is a loser." Potters and painters would produce vases with inscriptions targeting specific people. Sometimes they were compliments, calling a boy kalos, or beautiful. But often, they were insults. Comedians in the theater, like the famous playwright Aristophanes, would name-drop real people in their plays. Imagine sitting in a theater with 10,000 other Athenians. The actors on stage start making jokes about how you specifically are a wide-gated sellout who does anything for a pair of sandals. The whole crowd laughs. There is no block button. There is no report abuse function. This was viral shaming in real time. If you were a well-known male concubine, your reputation could be destroyed for entertainment. You became a punchline for the entire city, and that stigma stuck to you like the pitch plaster we talked about earlier. Number 1. The breathing tool reality. At the top of our list, we have the darkest realization of all. It isn't about the roosters, the hair removal, or the bad parties. It is about how the smartest men in history viewed you. Aristotle, the guy we call a genius of philosophy, described slaves and those who served others not as human beings, but as animate instruments. Tools that breathe. That is basically like your boss looking at you and seeing a vacuum cleaner that eats lunch. As a male concubine, especially if you were not a citizen, you were often reduced to this status. You were an object of pleasure, a status symbol, or a household accessory. Your thoughts, your dreams, and your feelings did not matter to the people writing the history books. You existed solely for the utility of someone else. The existential dread of being a concubine in ancient Greece was knowing that, to the man claiming to love you, you were often just a mirror reflecting his own vanity. You were a prop in his life story. And when the play was over, props get thrown in the storage bin. It sucks to be broke. It sucks to be waxed with fire. But it sucks the most to be stripped of your humanity by the very society you live in. So, the next time you complain about modern dating apps or a bad Tinder date, just remember, at least you didn't have to scrape oil off your body with a metal spoon just to earn a chicken. You're doing okay.